Hey guys, I wanted to come on tonight and bring you a couple of pretty crazy encounter stories that I read on Reddit. So I'm going to put this little ticker up here. It's not a ticker, but it's okay. If you have not subscribed to us, please do. Our numbers are going. We have shows booked up almost all the way through April. So we have one more show left in March to fill up. So if you want to come on with Wayne and I, absolutely reach out to us. Wayne at paranormalworldproductions.com or Tiffany at paranormalworldproductions.com. And if you don't want to come on as a guest and you just want to send in your encounter for us to read, you can also send it to those emails as well. So let's get going with these encounters. I'm super excited. This one comes from Sasquatch in Colorado. So a year had passed since I fully realized they were real. And I'd gotten a couple friends on board, at least enough to go camping and see what we could find. We ended up at a campground in Lost Creek Wilderness, a little ways northwest of Pikes Peak, Colorado. We really didn't expect to find anything on this first trip, and we were skeptical of the signs we came across until this morning. But we did notice a couple things. In an aspen grove nearby, we found an aspen tree that was broken off at its base, sort of hidden, laying behind some rocks. Later that night, sitting around the fire, one of my friends suddenly said, "Whoa, I just saw a flash of light over there." We decided it must have been a headlight shining through the trees from the road in the distance, but I turned around to look in the direction he'd been looking. Then I saw it too. A bright yellow, white circle of light appeared to peek out from behind a tree some 20 foot away, briefly coming into view before going back behind the tree. We again chalked it up to being a headlight, but examining the line of sight during the daytime, I don't think that's possible. The road is quite a ways away in that direction and obscured by many pine trees. If visible, a headlight would be scattered by the pines at least. What I saw was sharply defined and circular. Also, definitely felt like we were being watched. But I wasn't into trusting those feelings much at the time, so I brushed that off. The following morning, we did a little hike, and as we were getting back to camp, walking along the creek, someone noticed a stick structure on the other side of the creek. For an idea of scale, the tallest tree in the arch is probably 9 to 10 feet. But it's not possible to get over there without wading through cold, deep, fast-moving water. We're kind of dumbfounded by this sight because not only how would a person make that stick structure, why would a person make that stick structure? And we are making the connection to the broken off trees stashed on our side of the creek, not yet placed. And again, why would a person break the tree rather than using an axe? We stand in silence for a while, just thinking. And as I'm staring at this spot in the middle of the creek, a rock splashes directly in the center of my field of view. I asked if my friend saw it, and he said that he had. We both thought it was weird. Later, though, he confessed he hadn't actually seen the rock I saw, but had seen one earlier that I didn't notice and just didn't say anything. Our attitude after that first trip was sort of hesitantly amazed. We really hadn't expected anything and weren't really certain yet, but couldn't deny that we had a lot of reason to go back to that exact spot, which we did 2 days later. This time we did a night hike around midnight. We got a nearby ridge that overlooks a steep bowl-shaped slope a little ways away. I stopped a bit below the crest to catch my breath, so I was the last one to the top. I reached the top, and almost immediately, we all heard a powerful crack, like lightning from the middle of the other slope, followed by the sound of a tree hitting the ground. A tree broke on a perfectly clear, windless night, right as the last member of our group came into earshot of it. I want to leave my subjective interpretation out of this as much as possible, but this was an incredible moment, in my opinion. The apprehension from the hike through dark trees instantly vanished, replaced by awe. Goodness, what a mighty sound. It was like they were telling us, "Don't worry, We're all the way over here, but don't come any closer." I remember my good friend saying, "I thought it would be scary, but it's really just cool." And we were all a little slack jawed and teary eyed. We tried to knock to them, but the tree break was the only thing we heard that night. The next morning, two of us went on a sunrise hike, thinking we'd stop at the same ridge, but we ended up going all the way up the peak right above the campground. On our way down, we found another stick structure. I think I caught a glimpse of one of them peeking out at us from behind a tree while we were hanging out near that structure, but it was far enough away and obscured by pine needles that I couldn't be sure. There were two eyes glowing a pale blue in the early morning darkness, framed by dark brown hair on the face. I could barely make it out, but the thing that kept me staring at it was the peeking motion. One eye, back behind the tree. Two eyes, and then back behind the tree. This was accompanied by a strange sounding chirp noise from that location and another location off to its right. I eventually began to feel very uncomfortable, like we were outstaying our welcome, and insisted that we head back down. Subsequent trips back to the spot yielded more structures in the surrounding area, but nothing too eventful. I have a number of experiences at another location much closer to suburbia, which I'll type out later, but that's all I have at the moment. That's pretty interesting, if you ask me. I did want to go ahead and do another one because that one's kind of on the short side, so I wanted to get this one in here as well. So you get a twofer. This one is also from Reddit. However, I don't have the name. So if this is your story, not trying to take credit for it, just want to read it, put it out there. I've always been an avid outdoorsman. I've always hunted and I've always fished. I'm from Missouri and I know what we have and what we don't have. We have a few mountain lions scattered around and even fewer black bears. The only common things that are big and wild are deer, coyotes, and turkeys. And that being said, I really enjoy deer hunting. Our farm is situated on bluffs and ridges along the Missouri River in the center of the state. And while it's actually pretty populated, the terrain is incredibly rough and hard to get around on. That being said, our acreage isn't huge, but the surface area is. All kinds of ravines, gullies, hollows, etc. It was a few years ago when I was halfway through undergrad and went home on a weekend during bow season. So it's half an hour drive from the house to the farm, and I show up well before daylight. And as luck would have it, I forgot my keys to my dad's box stand, which we had to keep locked up so nobody vandalized. That didn't bother me much though, because like I said, rough terrain, it isn't hard to find a spot that sits over a game trail where I can have some elevation and cover to hunt. And I grew up around this farm, so I knew where the trails were. All I had was a pack with some stuff like a knife and rope and tags, my bow, and a little LED flashlight. I took off down the side of the ridge and found a good spot where I could lean against a tree that overlooked a trail with some brush in front of me for cover. Figured I'd wait for the sun to come up and a doe would come by and I'd be home with the deer by lunchtime. Got to the spot, set down my pack, knocked an arrow, and of course turned off my light. I got there probably too early and there was no sign of daylight yet, especially considering how thick the woods were. I'd been standing there for half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and then I heard a pack of coyotes. Like I said, not unusual. We have those. What I didn't like was that I was on the ground with only a bow in the dark, and these yips and howls were getting closer. It would be a real pain in the ass to accidentally surprise a pack of coyotes like that. I've never heard of them bothering people, but you know how surprised animals freak out. So I was getting ready to maybe arrow a coyote and was listening intently to where they were. As they came closer, I noticed something bigger was with them. My initial thought was that they were chasing a deer. I could hear leaves like crazy and some limbs snapping and stuff like that. Once again, that all makes sense. I had decided that it was a really big deer, maybe two of them. They were really tearing up the leaves as they came, and the yipping and howling was right there with them. They must have passed me maybe 30 or 40 yards farther down the hillside, went right on by without noticing me at all. They were in a heck of a hurry, too. Before I could even think of estimating the time, I had lost the sound of the coyotes in the ravines and woods. So, I kind of eased up then. Probably wasn't going to have to shoot anything for a while yet, if anything came around at all. And right then, as soon as I relaxed, was when I heard this loud whoop coming from right behind me. I don't think I ever jumped up, spun around, and drawn a bow so fast. Of course, you can't handle a bow and a light at the same time, so I was stuck there in the dark with something whooping right behind me, and I only had a bow. You can imagine I was a little tense. After about a minute, I let off the draw, but I kept my release on the string. I didn't move for another hour, not till I could see a ways without a light. After the sun came up enough, I walked out very slowly and kept looking behind me. I got in the truck and went home. I was totally done hunting for the weekend. So, what was it? Like I said, I've been in those woods my entire life and I have never heard anything like that. I thought about owls and looked up every owl I could think to find, and none of them were like that. The only thing I've heard that sounds like that are these supposed Bigfoot vocalizations. So then that makes me wonder, was a pack of coyotes chasing a Sasquatch? Not likely. So then I thought, well, what if the Sasquatch was chasing the coyotes, either to kill them out of spite or to kill them for food? At any rate, the whole thing was weird. I would never even thought it was remotely possible for something like that, if they exist at all, to be found in Missouri so close to civilization. Of course, after I did some Googling, I found other cases of Missouri sightings, and a lot of them. Fascinating, fascinating tales. I don't know what I would do if I was sitting in the dark and a just bunch of coyotes came, and then all of a sudden there's a Bigfoot. Yeah, wouldn't be me, wouldn't be me, friend. So yeah. So thanks for coming this evening. Again, if you have any encounters you would like to share, reach out to me and Wayne. Wayne at paranormalworldproductions.com or Tiffany at paranormalworldproductions.com. We have a show next Tuesday, and I hope to see you there. We have some new subscribers, so we are super excited about that. And I just want to thank you for joining and for all your love and for all your support. And again, if you're new here and you're listening after this plays and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. Again, we have a whole list of the coolest guests that are coming on, and I cannot wait to get into those. So absolutely subscribe, check us out, and we'll talk with you later. Have a good evening. Thank you again for coming.